Hello again. We're moving into Chapter 2 now, and in Unit 7. So in Unit 7, and in Chapter 2 we expand our language. We add several new symbols, and in Chapter 2 we will do derivations using these new symbols. We're able to symbolize a wider range of English sentences, and we'll use truth tables in a variety of ways to analyze arguments. Truth tables were introduced in the previous unit, and in subsequent units we'll get into them in more detail. In this unit, I'm going to introduce the new symbols. We're going to learn their grammar and meaning, and how to and what the inference rules for the new symbols are. And in this video, I'm going to introduce the new symbols and their grammar. So we have three new symbols. We have the wedge, the V, and the double arrow. The grammar for these all is exactly the same as the conditional. So if we have square and circle, if square and circle are sentences, then we have three more sentences, namely parenthesis, square, wedge, circle, parenthesis, parenthesis, square, V, circle, parenthesis, and parenthesis, square, double arrow, circle, parenthesis. These, so that grammatically they have the same role as the conditional, and we're going to expand our notion of informal notation, but our initial informal notation from Chapter 1 remains, so we can drop external parentheses wherever they're from. So, for example, here we have on the left square, wedge, circle, and that's an informal notation. Formally, it would, or officially, there would be parentheses there, but because we can drop the external parentheses, we have. And this means square and circle, square, wedge, circle, rather, means square and circle. This is the and symbol. So the whole thing is called a conjunction, and we call this symbol, we will refer to it as and, conjunction, or wedge. The second symbol, square, V, circle, means square or circle. So this is called a disjunction, and we call the symbol or, disjunction, or V. And finally, the double arrow. The double square, double arrow, circle means square if and only if circle, which is to say square if circle and square only if circle, or put differently, square if circle and circle if square. And this is called a biconditional because it's the conjunction of the conditional from the left to the right and the conditional from the right to the left. And we call the symbol IFF, or if, for if and only if. We call it a biconditional, and we call it the left-right arrow, or the double arrow. We have more informal notation for this new language. So if we have groupings of multiple ands or groupings of multiple ors, then we can drop all of the parentheses. So if they're grouped like this. So if we have a conjunction on the we have a conjunction whose left conjunct is itself a conjunction, we can drop the external parentheses by the initial convention, but then that internal pair of parentheses we can also drop. And the same thing with or. Now, so what this means is if you see one of these if you see a string of a conjunction that's a string, so there are multiple conjunction symbols, then the parentheses come back starting on the leftmost, around the leftmost and or, not around the rightmost and or. So we don't want any ambiguity here. And so the reason there's no ambiguity is that the parentheses always go back around the leftmost side. Now, what this means is that, so this symbol, this sentence, square or circle or triangle, is an abbreviation of square or circle or triangle. And it's not an abbreviation of square or circle or triangle. Now, those two sentences in official notation are equivalent, but they're different sentences, just like not square and square are equivalent but distinct sentences. So when we're in derivations, we're going to have to remember, if we see derivations, are everything is in informal notation, and so if we see square or circle or triangle, we'll need to remember which is the main connective, where do the parentheses go. The parentheses always go around the left connective, and so it's the right connective that's the main connective. And you cannot omit parentheses if you have a mix of conjunctions or disjunctions. Can't do that. So it's only if they're all the same. If they're all conjunctions or all disjunctions grouped to the left, then you can drop parentheses, and that's the only place you can drop parentheses. Other informal notation is this. So when we have a conditional, and in the antecedent or the consequent of the conditional is a disjunction or conjunction, we can drop the parentheses around the disjunction or conjunction. And the same for a biconditional. So if we have P, if we say if P and Q, then R, we can drop the external parentheses with our old convention, and then this new convention, this third convention, lets us drop the parentheses around the P and Q. Again, if we have P, if and only if Q or R, then we can drop the external parentheses because of the old convention, and the new convention lets us drop the parentheses around the disjunction. When a conditional or biconditional is inside of a disjunction or conjunction, then you can't drop the parentheses around the conditional. So it's only if you have a conditional higher in the tree and a disjunction or conjunction lower in the tree, then you can drop the parentheses around the conjunction or disjunction. So when you see something like the sequence P, wedge, Q, arrow, R, what you know is always that the arrow goes higher in the tree. And so if you see P, double arrow, Q, V, or R, then that, again, double arrow goes higher in the tree, and that tells you how to put the parentheses back. It's arrows are higher. When you're in informal notation, arrows are higher in the tree, V's and wedges are lower in the tree. So that's what we have. Oh, yeah, so here, right, as an example of what doesn't happen, we have this disjunction P if and only if Q or R. The main connector of that is the disjunction. You cannot drop the parentheses around the double arrows. If you did, you'd get P if and only, you can get the sequence P, double arrow, Q or R. And our convention tells us that, but that's what, we know that P, double arrow, Q, V, R is what you get if you drop the parentheses in P, main connective, biconditional, if and only if, then Q or R. So to avoid ambiguities, you can only drop the parentheses around the conjunctions or disjunctions so they go lower in the tree. If you could also drop the parentheses around arrows, then you would get ambiguities in informal notation, and we don't want ambiguities. So that's the grammar, and in the next video we will get into the meanings of the symbols.